Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind of reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is Lionel Ketching, and I'm here with George Ortega, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Today we'll be talking about the Bliss mantra method. And with that, I'm going to introduce George Ortega to talk to us more about the Bliss mantra method.
Okay, great. This is another method for very easily becoming much happier. Remember, I introduced the Ortega happiness method a while back with it. Had like 4 components. It was like valuing happiness, smiling, choosing pleasant thoughts instead of just passively accepting unpleasant thoughts, and laughing. This is a method I've been experimenting with personally recently, and it seems very powerful. It seems very effective. Basically, I've been meditating for years. I've been doing transcendental meditation, and the idea is simply you repeat a word, generally a Sanskrit word, with transcendental meditation. I have to say about this though that even though it was introduced to this country as transcendental meditation, Dr. Herbert Benson about 20-30 years ago or so demonstrated that one can have the same effect as with TM with just like the word one. You know, it doesn't have to have a special kind of like a TM connotation to it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the listeners realize that Dr. Herbert Benson, I think he's in Boston.
Yeah, I think Harvard, yeah.
At Harvard. And he had written a book, The Relaxation Response. So he made it pretty simple. And also I think you had said, George, that whereas TM comes up with these personal meditation words, like you meet with the guru for the first time and he tells you your meditation word. Right. But you said that Herbert Benson had found out that if you use any word, like one or any
you use
word,
banana, oh yeah,
banana, happiness, and so that would do the same job. It wasn't some mystical type of thing. It was just focus and concentration.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to. We discussed that. I found that interesting. I wanted to share that with everyone.
Oh yeah, definitely. And actually, before I go into more about exploring the method. Let me just go over a few benefits of this kind of mantra meditation that's called either transcendental meditation or the relaxation response. It's been shown to, I'm going to read this because it's up on the cue card there.
Sure.
Okay. It's it kind of when you do this, the heartbeat and the breathing rates are slowed down, oxygen consumption is lowered, the blood lactate level drops, which is a sign of reduced stress. Skin resistance, as measured by, I think, galvanic skin response, it increases 4-fold, which is another sign of relaxation. EEG readings of the brain show greater alpha activity. Our brain, kind of like activity actually changes. And another thing is, for example, when we do this, we actually reach a deeper level of relaxation than we reach at our deepest levels of sleep. So it's very profound relaxation. So it's got these are just some physiological effects. It's been demonstrated by over 500 studies, many of them done in major universities throughout the world, that this kind of meditation, this kind of mantra meditation, benefits one's life throughout all of the domains. Physiologically, emotionally, everything. All right, so basically the idea is that rather than just limiting the meditation to a word that if it's with TM we don't know the meaning of, or a word like one that it's kind of like abstract, vague and all, we can substitute the word bliss, okay, for that mantra. We can use bliss as our mantra. Okay, now with the word bliss, I was in trying to come up with a word to use. I was trying to find a word for complete happiness. There are none. All right, so I think the closest that I came to is bliss, meaning great happiness, and we've got to redefine the language in a sense. Our language
expand it, maybe.
Our language is constantly evolving, and so basically, for our purposes, bliss, and hopefully this definition will be expanded and more universally accepted. Bliss, in the way we're using it, means complete happiness. Okay, now complete happiness is a concept that, in a sense, our reasoning may not totally accept. Because how could it be complete happiness? There's pain and stuff. But nevertheless, the mind still, there's a part of our mind that's part of the limbic reptilian part of the mind that simply doesn't need reason. It just reacts viscerally, emotionally. Okay, so basically, we introduce to our minds this this bliss, and basically, we meditate. Now with meditation, what you do, the way it's prescribed generally is like 20 times a day, 20 minutes twice a day, right, in the morning and the evening. You shouldn't do it after a big meal, because it kind of slows digestion and all. And they advise to not generally do it before going to sleep, because
you can fall asleep.
Well, no, actually, that's interesting, because they advise. It's funny because they advise not to do it while lying down, because you can fall asleep while doing it. But they also advise not to do it before you go to sleep, because sometimes it has an energizing effect that, you do it for 20 minutes, you'll be up for 2 hours. I personally do it before I go to sleep, and it just works fine. But you'd have to try it based on one's experience.
Well, one more thing, if I may add. I mean, I've been meditating a long time. For those times when you couldn't sleep enough, and you'd have in other words, I got to get to bed because I only have so many hours and I got to wake up. If you meditated before you could only sleep, you would need less sleep meditating. Yes. Which is an interesting thing to come up with.
Oh yeah, 20 minutes of meditation is I think is the equivalent. I think of over an hour of sleep or so, probably an hour or two or so, something like that. But yeah, all right, so the idea is so now you're just meditating on this word bliss, and what it does, and you all right, the way I prescribe it is not just these 20 minutes a day. I prescribe it you're going to your car, you got to drive someplace, you're doing things that you're washing dishes, things that don't demand you.
Okay, so you're talking about using awareness throughout the day all the time.
Yes, some of us who are younger especially will walk through a lot of their days with Walkmans on, listening to music, okay? And that music is very positive. Music is one of the few things that elevates mood, that enhances mood. So basically, that mantra is kind of like our background music. That's the backdrop to our general experience. And the other thing that it does is, as we're going through our day, and now I've got to mention, it's not, in my experience, it's not possible to be extremely successful in this to the extent of concentrating and focusing and repeating this mantra over and over throughout the day, because it's difficult. It's difficult to keep that focus. Thoughts will constantly come into our minds. We'll be distracted by many things, but it's simply just the matter of just doing it as much as one can.
Yeah, I want to make a statement about that, because one of the things actually Eckhart Tolle in his book Power of Now taught me. I think this was profound. It's very simple, but he said rather than see how long you could do it, how long you could use this particular mantra method, it's not how long you use it, it's how often you remember to do it. So even if it's a few seconds, and then you pick it up again. See, because if you keep remembering to do it, that's more important than how long you're doing it for, because eventually, if you keep remembering to do it, you'll do it more often. And the length will take care of itself. But, don't feel, hey, I did it for, 20 minutes today. It's not a contest of that sort. It's about doing it more and more often, to be aware that you're not doing it, and to find yourself maybe in negative thought or in thought that's taking you away and maybe making you unhappy, and then letting go of that and going back to this method. That's how wonderful it is.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because basically our job is to remember to do it as often as possible, as you say.
Right.
But then the benefit that it has for us is that it reminds us to be happy. I mean, when we're walking to our car, driving someplace, doing dishes, whatever we're doing doing that, and we're silently repeating to ourselves, bliss, bliss, just in a way that's comfortable. This is, again, there's no contest in how fast you could do it or whatever, something that it should feel pleasant. each time we remind ourselves to do that, it reminds us to feel happy. And in my personal experience, and this, oh God, this works so well when one is involved, because there are negative emotions that come into our minds, and negative perceptions and experiences and all. And in my personal experience, I find that when that happens and I begin saying this word bliss to myself, it's just like whatever the emotion a lot of times stays to a certain extent, but then there's this overriding feeling of happiness, of bliss, of like whatever I'm experiencing that is negative simply is inconsequential.
Well, I would think the logical reason for that, and the reason for it, is that you're not dwelling on, you're not being carried away by the negative thoughts. You're not going there. Right. They're knocking, but you're not letting them in, and you're not giving them space. You're controlling where your feelings and your mind are going. That's what you're doing.
Definitely. Okay, and another great benefit of this is that happiness is a feeling and it's an experience, and it's an experience that many of us aren't so very familiar with, because if we were, we'd be more than just 70% happy, on average. So the idea is that this method, this bliss meditation, bliss mantra meditation, creates an opportunity for contemplating happiness. As I'm going through my day, or setting aside certain specific times to do this meditation, you can't but, if you're saying the word bliss, you can't but be thinking about it, right? Your mind is honing in on this concept. It's a concept, but the concept is very, very strongly attached with a feeling, and then you think, well, what is this bliss, right? And you're feeling it, and then for example, you might notice that a negative emotion or thought comes into your mind, but then you're still feeling this, and then you kind of conclude, oh, well, wait a minute, this feeling is independent of this thought. So basically, it's a way of contemplating the experience of happiness, the experience of complete happiness, in a way that helps us to understand it better, and not just understand it better, but as we understand it better and as we contemplate it and get more familiar with it, we begin to feel it more strongly.
Okay, so when you're doing this, are you feeling centered in the moment? In other words, you're not looking into the future, you're not thinking about the past, you're really present in a sense. Isn't this part of it?
It depends. Like if I'm doing this, if I've chosen to sit down or lie down and simply meditate as my activity, definitely. That will tend to a certain extent, just separate myself from other experiences. And again, like with TM and the relaxation response meditation in general, it's generally accepted that thoughts will come into our minds, but our experience will be much more honed in on the meditation. But no, the idea is that it's not that it separates us so much from experience. For example, I could be doing something and be involved in something and be saying this mantra bliss, kind of like not even concentrating on it much, just simply saying it and not even thinking about it, not even trying to think about it, but the simple act of repeating it, just silently, will have that effect. I mean,
well, I would consider that's true, because I don't think and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I don't think we could do two things at one time, or at least I don't think our minds can. So if you're giving your mind this mission, it can't become a rascal and start thinking about negative or unhappy or unpleasant things, or other things that you may not want it to do. One thought I have for you is I think awareness. It's almost like a mindfulness, where if I were using the method as you talk about, the Bliss mantra method, and let's say I said or thought bliss, I would want to, and I don't know if you do this, but I would want to use it with my breathing, for example, to try to get more focus and more awareness within myself. So I think bliss as I inhaled.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've worked with bliss with breathing for several years, and it's very good in the sense that it enables it enables us to relax much more. And these effects are cumulative. The more you practice it, the more one's body becomes more relaxed. And then the idea is that as we become more relaxed, we free ourselves up to feel that feeling of happiness more. It's kind of like, you know, the happiness is an end result of being much more relaxed.
Yeah, and you know, and we could tie in happiness and pleasure, because when we're more relaxed, more aware of our breathing, we actually experience pleasure of the body in terms of feeling the relaxation, feeling a stress relief, you know, and that's a very pleasurable experience. So it fits in with exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no reason at all why you can't, you know, do the breathing with this, you know. In the beginning you might want to like try one or the other first, you know, so that, because like basically you're going to have to be concentrating on the mantra and on the breathing, you know, kind of at the same time. I guess it'll alternate, but you may want to start out with one and then go to the other. But yeah, using both it would probably be very beneficial also. Okay, now also in addition to the effect of creating an arena that allows us to contemplate and understand happiness better, what it also does is it allows us to simply focus on that feeling. Okay, because think about this. We go through our days, and if we're at work, we're focused on whatever it is we're doing to try to understand it, do it as best we can, whatever. When we're with people, we're focusing on communication. You know, so much of our day demands that our focus be on what's happening, on these external kinds of situations. And a lot of times we lose our happiness focus, we lose our kind of like consciousness that while we're doing whatever we're doing, we can also be happy. So what this does, this allows us to get better at feeling the feeling of happiness. Because again, if somebody wants to try this at home, you just sit down, right? And a good way to do this is pretend you're an actor, okay? If somebody pretends one is an actor and one is called upon to play the role of, let's say, a completely happy person who's totally blissed out, sitting in some chair, right? So somebody does that, and within moments, within seconds, a person can begin to feel happier. Why?
That's true.
Why? Because the person is simply focusing on that feeling. Okay, again, now happiness
and acting the part.
Sure, acting, but the acting is like the essence of acting in this sense is feeling that feeling.
Feeling the part.
Right.
The actor has to feel the part in order to.
In this way, yeah. There's I think another method, acting method, where you actually work with behaviors. That kind of like,
yeah, that's the other part.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, the idea is that like as we focus on that happiness, we get to understand it better and better. We get to feel it more and more strongly.
A couple of quick things I want to say in your favor, by the way. With this method, anything to do with controlling your thinking, controlling your state of mind, and with happiness is, I'm all for. But I think some of the things that work in your favor, if you're going to do this, is that one, you mentioned focus, and the good thing about focus is when you're focused, you're not confused. And when people say I'm stressed out, what they're really saying is I'm confused. There's so many things going on, I just don't know what to concentrate on. So this method can help you concentrate and focus. And if you are stressed out, let's say you got to go into a meeting, you left one, you're nuts, and you say, oh, how am I going to function? This is going to kill me. So you go to the bathroom, you close the door, you don't use the toilet paper, you sit there, 20 seconds, you focus, you do the meditation, a minute. You come out, flush the toilet, and never use the toilet paper. You go out, you're refreshed. And you use this meditation to lead your day so you don't have to have an overwhelming feeling of helplessness. Yeah,
and you're gonna try to use this method throughout your day in order to connect that feeling through this linguistic method of like repeating the word to every experience. Now, a way to kind of like explain this is like the psychologist Pavlov pioneered this kind of like conditioning, classic conditioning, whereas like, for example, basically they what they did with the dog is like, I think they
fed it, rang the bell.
They rang a bell, right, then they fed it, right, so like
salvated.
Right, exactly. So the idea is like, the dog, some people don't understand this, so let me explain this.
Okay.
Basically, they fed this dog, okay, right, and each time they would feed it, they right before they fed it, I think it was, they would ring a bell, and then the dog would get fed, right? So that after a while, every time the bell rang, whether or not the dog was actually fed, the dog would actually begin to salivate, because a connection had been established. It was called a conditioned response. Okay, so basically, what we're doing with this happiness, with this Bliss mantra method, is creating a conditioned response to every situation we're in, every situation we find ourselves in. We're doing the dishes. I don't know why I keep on going back to the dishes. I got a whole
you got a lot of dishes.
I do. But no, we're crossing the street. I don't know. We're doing something, and like whatever we're doing, if we're saying the word silently to ourselves, bliss, and reminding ourselves of the experience of happiness and feeling at that moment, that means that a lot of times where we might be in that experience, later, and we might forget to say the word bliss, but that conditioning will have happened. You know, that it'll set up a connection between the word bliss, the feeling of happiness, and whatever we're doing.
Okay, I got it. That's good.
Oh yeah,
that's good.
So that the idea is, like after a while, if you're diligent in kind of like using this as a kind of like a backdrop to your experience, kind of like as a Walkman that you're creating yourself, you can like. I think after a while it'll be applied to pretty much every experience, and it'll reflect itself, you know. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I want to make another point, and it goes right along. Maybe it would be a good illustration point to understand how well this works as a model. When normally you're thinking, it all starts with your thinking. You know, when you're experiencing unhappiness, you say, "Oh, I don't know what it is. I'm unhappy." But it started with a thought. You let a thought in. You know, you entertained it. The thought led to a feeling. The feeling led to the behavior, which is unhappiness, but it all started with the thought. So it's connected. Thought, feeling, behavior, it's all a state. Now, when you're using this method, you're changing the state, but you're doing it from the other end. And since it's connected, you can do that. You take the behavior, you start changing it, you start working on the feeling. The feeling, in turn, affect the thinking. And the fact that you're controlling the thinking with the word bliss means you're no longer allowing negative thoughts to enter, so you've now made the circuit work the other way. So you've controlled the thinking. One way or the other, you're controlling it, whether through behavior, feeling, or thinking. And I think it's a beautiful method because you're controlling all of it, you know, and it's affecting, and it's reaching back and forth and affecting all of it. And I think you're right. I think happy people become happier because the connection starts to really get put in there.
Oh yeah, it's like
so great.
The more and more you do math, the easier it becomes. The more we do play piano, the easier it becomes.
Go ahead.
All right, no, because I forgot something.
Because you only got 4.5 minutes.
I know, I forgot something. The other part of this, I didn't talk about the smiling, right? I mean,
no, you didn't.
The idea is that, again, as part of the Ortega happiness method, smiling was a component, and with this, I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible, so that you just, repeat the word bliss throughout your day, in sessions where you meditate. But something that I find extremely helpful is to actually use the smile as like a second mantra. And the idea is that as you smile, regardless of what you're doing throughout your day, and it doesn't have to be a broad, total smile. It can just be a pleasant grin, a pleasant facial expression. As you're doing that, that's creating not just a psychological connection, but also a physiological connection. I mean, it's been demonstrated that as we smile in general, we feel that feeling of happiness. So basically it's the idea that, so it's two components. It's like smiling and the repeating of the word bliss. And again, with the smile, it's kind of like a mantra in the sense that, it's continuous, okay, but it's kind of like you're constantly having to remind yourself to keep smiling, and that can become habitual. But even though it's habitual, it can be, a repetitive thing.
Well, George, I know that in a car coming here, I had a big smile on my face. I mean, I put on a smile, and I felt great. You know what the first thing that happens when I smile? My mind asks me, why are you smiling? Like, this is kind of silly. And so the answer to why you're smiling is why not? There is no answer. And it's just as good a reason as any. You see, the point is, we think
wait a minute. Why are you smiling? Because it feels good.
Yes, exactly. And it'll do good things for me.
Yeah.
But that, see, we're so locked up in reason. We have lived our lives where unless there's a reason to smile, we ain't smiling. And that's what we're talking about. Smile for no reason, and then the reasons might even show up.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you won't even see the reasons unless you smile.
Right. Okay. I want to get to one last point, but before that, I just want to remind the viewers that, like, this is kind of like a bit involved in a sense. It's simple in concept, but, like, you know, you're watching this on television. It's going to be on the web, on the internet, www.thehappiness.show.com. All right. So if you want to review the concepts there, you know, you can log on to that anytime. It'll be there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now the last point I want to make, I think is very important, is that we teach how to get happy, stay happy, and become much happier in many different ways, because it's so possible to do that in so many ways. You know, being more accepting, being more positive, worrying less. I mean, there's countless ways. You know, there are so many ways. But the beauty and the strength and the power of this technique is that it's so simple. It is so simple, and I mean, you've got to try it to understand how powerful it is. Because I mean, you know, it's like sometimes it's like this Frank Lloyd Wright-ian, I think he said it, more is less. You know, this concept of just simplifying things in order to make them more effective, more powerful. It's the most simple way of becoming much happier that I've encountered, you know, to date. And what I do is, you know, like, I don't just talk about these things. I try them myself. I wouldn't be talking about this as enthusiastically as I am if it hasn't been working very well for me. And I've just been using it, I think for about 2-3 weeks or so. I mean, I was meditating with other mantras before, and I was using other happiness methods, but this is relatively new. But the reason I'm bringing it out so soon after I've just tried it is because it's so effective.
It's great. It sounds great. Any other last words on this?
Let's see. Remember to catch Lionel's website also, thehappinessclub.com.
Right.
Okay, and yeah,
and find out about happiness shows if you live in Connecticut. I mean, Happiness Club if you live in Connecticut. Check it out on our website. This is great. So, and come on back next week and catch us both again. We have plenty of happiness to share with you. So I guess, George, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks very much for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us better enjoy life, be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next week here on The Happiness Show. Thank you very much.
Happiness is powerful. It's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.